Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to the fourth episode of Catching Up with this time we have a very special guest, Chantel Gushue. And I'm very excited to start this round. Just a huge thank you again to Ontario Arts Council for providing us the funding to be able to do a better job, more professional for our archival purposes. And as everybody knows, these will be later edited and then uploaded to our YouTube channel. So if you wanted to spread the word around and let your friends know that this will be available forever on the internet. I know Belle isn't like that, but but it will be. So yeah, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. And I'm just gonna give a brief description of our lovely guest. Chantel. Chantel is a force to reckon with. Obviously, everybody knows. And for you, those who don't know, just wait until I'm finished about everything that she does, and you'll be surprised. So Chantel, she's gonna go over everything, but obviously, I just want to make a quick introduction of what she's done and where she is now. Chantel got her bachelor's from Nova Scotia School of Art and Design, correct? Right? And then her master's in Massachusetts Schools of Art and Design, which I can't wait to talk about that a little maybe later.
Sure.
And she resides in Halifax, Nova Scotia. She is part of the team at Co-Adorn. She teaches at NASCAD. She is a mom, which is a huge job of its own. And then what else? You're part of, yes, not done, part of New York Jewelry Week. The team definitely, again, like, so I was thinking today, I was like, I'm a huge I have a problem with the word multitasking because I don't think anybody can truly multitask. There's been research on that people like 2% of people are able to multitask. And then I was like, until it gets to Chantal. So I felt obligated to put this out as a parental kind of PG that don't try to be like Chantal because you're probably gonna fail.
You're embarrassing me now.
No, I'm not. But honestly, in all seriousness, I think Chantal is a one in a million because she can accomplish so much and is I've never waited longer, not to raise expectations, but I've never waited longer than maybe 5 minutes for Chantal to respond to me. So it's something that I really appreciate about her. Every time I see her, she has a big smile on her face. She's very helpful. She's just passionate, like a lot of us in the field. And I have worked with her on numerous projects. One of them was that we had this conversation or interview, not this conversation, before when I first started doing these series for the pandemic through Instagram Live. But unfortunately, Instagram Live, that was the only video that it didn't save. So I lost that video and I really wanted to have her back just to show what a force she is and how much she brings to the community and how much of her personal passion and time and energy she really puts into bringing everybody together and putting Canada on the map. So I think that was my short, brief description of what, 5 minutes? I'm so
I think that was the entire presentation. We can all go now.
I'm sorry.
Thank you,
I'll
Pasha.
hand it off to you, Chantel.
Okay, let me go back to the old screen share here that
Yes,
we
sure,
set
please.
up already.
I
There
will
we
change
go.
this.
Okay, perfect. Um,
Great.
yes, it says that it is there, so that's great.
Yep,
Thank you, Pasha. That was
my
very nice.
pleasure.
And thanks everyone who's joined us today or anyone who's watching this on YouTube later. My name is Chantel Gushue. And even after what Pasha just said, when I was invited to participate in this catching up session, I was a little overwhelmed creating the PowerPoint because um, when I reflect on my journey or my daily life, sometimes I feel like I'm a lot of different people because I have my fingers in so many different projects, and all of those projects are related, but sometimes they seem disconnected. And sometimes I find it hard to believe they all come from the same person. Um, Overall, my path has been full of starts and stops and going in circles, and I think that's okay. And what I hope to share with everyone here is that I think that if anyone watching is feeling frustrated, especially goal-oriented people who have a hard time accepting that there are many different paths that you can take in this industry, or different paths to success, or what success looks like. You don't have to follow the traditional route of degree teaching galleries. There's lots of different ways that you can get to wherever it is that you're going. So that's kind of the thesis of this
I
presentation.
love that. Thank you. That was great. I have the biggest smile on my face right now. I'm not on screen, but that was perfect.
Oh,
Thank
thanks.
you.
So maybe some of this is a little bit of a repeat from what Pasha was sharing in my introduction, but I completed an undergraduate degree at the Nova Scotia College of Art and Design in Halifax, where I had initially planned to do a Bachelor of Design, but ended up earning a Bachelor of Fine Arts with a major in jewelry design and metalsmithing, and a double minor in graphic design and art history. And I know that that title sounds very academic, but it really just means that I only took classes in 3 areas instead of having a full interdisciplinary experience at school. So design, jewelry, art history, repeat for years and years. um, I struggled at NASCAD, I won't lie. I was young. I was younger than many of the students in my year, because a lot of them, I would say wisely, came to NASCAD after a gap year or a second degree, or transferred halfway through after realizing whatever path that they were taking wasn't the right one for them. And I think that my lack of life experience and probably maturity made it really difficult for me to grasp the idea of concept as a foundation to an art practice. So I knew that I really enjoyed the act of making and designing, but I really struggled with creating based on an abstract theme. So much so that in my second year of school, I ended up dropping out of the jewelry program because of a single assignment that I just couldn't wrap my head around. And anyone who went to NASCAD in the early aughts knows this project well. It was called Lost, and you had to create a piece of jewelry based on that concept. And so we were required to do research and design, and I just couldn't understand what I was supposed to be researching because I'm a very linear thinker, and it wasn't straightforward enough for my task-driven approach as a young person.
Chantal, this was the project you dropped out because of?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
this is round 2.
But oh, all right, all right. Because I was like, because the outcomes are fantastic. So
Thanks.
it was like, okay, great,
Yeah,
great.
round 1, don't I'm sure that piece has gone to the refiner many years ago, but yeah, it was so hard. I just didn't understand what in the world that research was supposed to look like.
Yes.
um, and I will admit that it probably took me 15 years before I figured out how to do that kind of research, so there you go.
Great.
So NASCAD, I even though that was my experience, I was very fortunate to have an incredible professor who is now my mentor and a very good friend, who found a way for me to complete the program in a way that suited my strengths. At NASCAD, like many fine arts schools, your final semesters are typically spent making a thesis body of work, which I couldn't have done. It would have been too overwhelming, too conceptual. It would have been a hardcore fail for me, and I knew that, and she knew that. So instead, I was given the opportunity to do an internship in the design department at Burke's in Phillips Square in Montreal, which let me do the program in a way that aligned better with my design methodology, rather than doing that traditional thesis art project route. So it was a great experience in a lot of ways, a lot like school, believe it or not.
Right. Yes.
Uh, I learned to render designs in their style. I worked on design briefs. We went to photo shoots. We went to fashion week shows. I had to help reorganize the design archive when I was there. And this design work was the complete opposite of conceptual. You were given stones, very excited to have access to a color photocopier. So I color photocopied like everything that ever came across my desk while I was at Berks. So on the screen here on the left-hand side, you'll see that this is exactly what you would be given. Here are the stones that we've bought hundreds of. You have to make a ring out of 14 karat gold. It has to be a ring. This is what the price will be when it hits the store. Show us what that's going to look like. And so that's what you did.
I did not know you did that.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know you worked for Berks. Okay, great.
Yeah, it's really too bad. When I was at Berks, they were sold to Mayors, which was an American fine jewelry
Yes.
chain. And this could be misinformation, but I understood that they purchased jewelry from trade shows in Hong Kong instead of fabricating their own collections the way they had been doing, since the 1800s.
Yes.
So the design department shifted to home goods, so
Yeah.
like silver picture frames and things like that. And because of that, I didn't get to stay. So.
That's not, that's very, that was I think that was because I also had experience with Berks. I worked for them as a sales uh
Oh
professional. Yeah. May I ask what year this was?
yeah, 2003.
Okay, yeah, that's when there was a major shift in the company. It was just a little bit sad because it was such a sort of pioneer in Canadian market in terms of fine jewelry, and it was so well recognized that just being bought by another American company sort of, I think it
Yeah.
shifted things a lot from being a local. Anyway, I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, it's
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
Totally
Okay.
great. It was a really like I have very fond memories of that time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
just
always imagine what the workshops were before it shifted. And because we still refer to the workshops in Montreal as workshops in Montreal, but then
right.
later on I found out that it wasn't what I had in my mind.
Yeah.
It was a very different concept. And that image of that building that you showed, I could just imagine how amazing it would be for somebody who's passionate about jewelry to work there under what it was
Yeah.
before.
And I was a child,
Yeah,
honestly. I was in
yeah,
my early 20s. I had
that's
no right to
great.
be there. I had a swipe card. I felt really cool.
I can completely imagine. So I'm very glad that you shared that experience.
Thank
That's,
you.
yeah.
Uh, so that didn't pan out. Obviously, I'm not working for Berks as a designer. But the parting advice that I received from the head of design was that it was clear that maybe I didn't have very much knowledge about gemstones and that it would be to my benefit to take a gemology class at the École de Gemologie in Montreal. So I did that, and that turned into a whole other situation.
Adventure.
I didn't make jewelry again after I heard that. So I took a night class in gemology, and then I packed up my apartment and moved to Vancouver and finished my gemology diploma there. Moved back to Montreal, did something not jewelry related, and then ended up back in Halifax. And when I arrived in Halifax, I was offered a position teaching gemology at NASCAD. Again, when I was really too young, the students were older than I was. It was
Wow. Yeah,
a
I
whole
can. Yeah,
experience.
sure.
But yeah, so that suggestion from Marion Cameron turned into a fellowship in gemology with the Canadian Gemological Association, then my graduate gemologist diploma from GIA. And then eventually that turned into becoming one of the few Canadian accredited jewelry appraisers in Canada. And so that was really my focus for the next 10 years or so. While simultaneously, I was the studio technician, or the Americans like to say studio manager, at NASCAD. So my
Right.
life really was running that studio and doing gemology and appraising.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
all over. It's a long meandering path.
Sorry?
I said it's a long meandering path.
Yes, true.
Yeah, so with all of that going on, I stepped away from jewelry making. I was lucky because I was in that academic environment. I had access to visiting artists and things like that, presentations, public lectures, all of the things that come with being attached to a university, which was really great. And so um, once in a while I'd take a workshop or something. I didn't lose a passion for jewelry. I was just focused on a different kind of jewelry for a period of time. I had
Mhm.
a home studio. I had an Etsy shop where I made really gross, boring production work that I'm not proud of. Um, and it wasn't a joyful experience doing that. I did the usual favors that everyone is asked to do. So engagement rings and pearl stringing and all of those things that we do for the people that we love that aren't really fun, but they don't know that. And I took interest classes. So the most recent interest class that I took, I had the opportunity to meet a well-known American professor who encouraged me to pursue a master's degree. And um, if you haven't figured it out yet, I'm very susceptible to suggestions and was enrolled in an MFA program within a year.
I love that.
Yeah. So suddenly I'm a graduate student at 40.
Great.
Yeah.
I
So
have to say, sorry, before you go on that last bail, I've never seen a bail like that for that neck. Yes, this one.
yeah, it slides in and then closes shut.
It's lovely.
Thank you.
I stared at it the whole time you were talking. I was looking at that and I was like, it's one of those things where you're like, why didn't I think about that? Right? So
Once in a while, those things
I'm
come to
glad you
you.
shared it. Yes.
I can't promise that everything always has a perfect design element, but sometimes that happens.
Yeah, sometimes it happens. Exactly.
So suddenly I find myself at graduate school. I went to the Massachusetts College of Art and Design and suddenly needing to make conceptual work, which was a struggle. I won't lie. It took me
Yes.
a long time to maybe catch up even as a fully formed adult to what other people had I think learned. I think that like that conceptual aspect of making is something that can be taught and I missed the lesson, but I learned it. It just took a really long time. So my work at Mass Art was an exploration of crystallography, which is a key aspect of gemology.
Right.
So all crystals are
Yeah.
formed in a very specific way, and that's what I focused on.
Chantal, was this program, did you have to go in with a thesis or did you have to
No.
develop this as you were there? Okay, so you
Yeah.
developed this. Okay, sure. And how long is the program?
So I did what is called a low residency MFA. So it's done over 7 semesters
Oh, wow. Okay.
instead of the usual four.
Four.
Because
Yeah.
it's part-time, you
Right.
do it through distance,
Oh,
except in the summertime, you report to campus and you do like a summer intensive for 3 summers in a row in person. So, because I am a mom and I had a full-time job, this was
yeah.
the only way that I could ever do a master's degree. There was no way that I was going to leave my job and leave my kids for 2 years
For
to
two
do
years.
something
Absolutely.
in
Yeah,
person.
because most of us, I think, end up doing our masters later in life.
Mhm.
And like not later in life, but like in late 30s, beginning of 40s. So
Yeah.
that's I had no idea they offer that. That's such a good solution to people that have a full-time job or our parents or are teaching to be able to take advantage of the summertime. That's
Yeah, and a lot of people in the program were educators who
wow.
needed a
You need
master's
okay,
degree
sure.
to be able to keep their employment. So
Absolutely, yes.
art teachers are the people who usually take these kinds of classes or this kind of degree. I picked mass art because this is such a ridiculous thing that only other NASCAD people will understand, but it has a very similar founding story and
Oh, wow.
To
Okay.
NASCAD. Like it's very similar to NASCAD in a lot of ways. And so
Sure.
it was just like very
It's like a
comfortable.
perfect, yeah, sure. Oh,
And
wow.
and from Halifax, Boston is drivable in a day. So
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna say. Like the distance will probably also have an effect on. That's
absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's really good information. Thank you.
Yeah. It's great. Listen, there are lots of problems with low residency programs, but there are lots of problems with residency programs too.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
This was very, very hard, a very difficult 2.5 years,
absolutely.
but
I can only imagine. Yeah.
it worked out in the end.
Great. Good. That's
um, so the other part about that, I picked mass art because they had a jewelry department, although I wasn't allowed in it. um,
oh wow, okay.
yeah, yeah. So it's an interdisciplinary fine arts program.
Okay.
Um, and I wasn't able to negotiate with the studio manager or prove that I had enough knowledge to be
No.
allowed in that department, which,
Right.
listen, as a technician myself at the time, I completely appreciate how annoying outsiders are when they want to
Yes.
use your studios. So I had to respect that. So my first many semesters at Mass Art, I did not make jewelry at all.
Wow.
I
Okay.
wasn't in a craft program, so I had to spend a lot of time educating
Yes. Sure.
instructors and my peers about the value of craft and the why of craft. And
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
You're a good person for that. So they were lucky to have you to give them that education, you
I'm
know?
sure they were very annoyed. I mean,
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, but that's really nice.
well, another issue, I think, especially for fine arts people, and this is not all fine arts people, but for fine arts programs, in the early 2020s are really installation heavy. It's really about creating experiences and immersive experiences for the viewer. And so it was very difficult to have to continuously explain why it was not possible to make 100 of something.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I mean, if jewelers who are listening can appreciate that, we're not making 20-minute pieces and then making thousands of them, but that
Absolutely.
was really what I felt that I was being encouraged to do. Uh, yeah, so I focused on crystals, as I said about the last slide, and I was making them in different shapes and sizes, in different materials, um, really as a means to using crystal growth as a metaphor for conformity and perfection and failure, ultimately.
Right. Can I ask what the middle one, what the material in that is?
Yeah, so it's a really so the I don't have a lot of this work. That crystal is, I would say, about 20 centimeters tall, and it's made
Okay.
out of a glittery
I thought
cardstock.
so.
Yeah,
Okay, wow,
yeah,
it's really cool.
yeah. And the ones on either side of that are made out of wood veneers.
Right. Okay, cool.
So to maybe explain that metaphor for conformity a little bit, that for people who aren't interested in gemology, but a crystal will grow indefinitely in a perfect three-dimensional geometric form as
Right.
long as it has ideal conditions, so
Right.
correct
Okay.
temperature, correct pressure, and a continuous supply of building material.
Okay.
And so the idea is that an external force is the reason why a crystal might not reach its ideal form.
Okay.
So it's kind of scapegoating or attributing
Yes.
failure to external factors to avoid taking responsibility for maybe falling short. And so the images on the screen here are collages that I had done out of watercolor and paper. And a brooch in the bottom right-hand corner that was in a metal aid show at New York City Jewelry Week in
Yes, yes.
2019 or
19.
2020.
I think it was 19, yeah.
Yeah. And then finally in my last year, um, because I like to be righteously indignant, I decided I'm making jewelry for my thesis work. I'm a jeweler. I don't care if no one likes it. This is what I'm doing, like a little brat. So I then started making jewelry, and I was comparing natural occurring ugly crystals with handmade pretty crystals that I had been creating.
Uh,
And this was about the contrast between perceived perfection and actual perfection.
right.
So the idea that the bone is gross and ugly, but it is actually like the perfect crystal, where these things on the right hand side, yeah, they're sparkly, but they're brittle, they're useless, there's no benefit to them. And so I think a lot of this work will be familiar to viewers, but I was really drawn to the cancellous, which is this lace-like structure that's part of the long bone closest to the joint. So that would be your arm bones or your leg bones.
Yep.
Nearest your elbow or knee, it has this kind of spongy texture, which I really became a fan of. And then suddenly I became someone who makes bone jewelry
Bone jewelry.
unintentionally.
But beautiful bone jewelry.
Thanks.
You know?
Thanks. So yeah, a long period of time where everything I made really did have a bone in it. All of these bones are animal. So either lamb or cow bones.
And would you just get these bones from like the butcher
Yeah,
or okay,
yeah, yeah.
cool.
Very rarely, I think once in a blue moon, maybe it would have come out of a meal that I had, but in
Oh,
most
right, okay.
cases, yeah, they
Yeah.
are a butcher close to home
Yes.
knew me as the creep who wanted the ends of the long bones. So parallel themes that were part of this body of work, or what continued on into later works, is an idea of environmental generational amnesia, which is like a sub theme in my thesis. So this concept means that each generation considers the amount of nature that they see as the normal amount of nature, because they've
Oh,
become desensitized to environmental degradation, eventually accepting that as being what nature is and should be. And this series that's on screen now was examining native species or weeds that are common in Nova Scotia, and the idea that weeds that grow through cracks are perceived as nature or a natural part of the environment,
right.
but they're not.
Wow. So cool. I'm learning
Thanks.
so much. Thank you.
I got there. I got there in the end. um, because I felt like maybe I had exhausted what I could do with bones for a little bit. Maybe I'll come back to them. I moved on to this next series that are called flat pack gemstones. They're made from like watercolor paper, like a heavy stock paper, that are shaped through scoring and folding to mimic traditional gemstones. So they have a very modest material value, you know, like pennies per piece, but they symbolize the connection between reality and desire. And it allows the wearer to appreciate the beauty of gemstones while also maybe sparking discussions about the financial and social implications
Yeah,
associated with them.
definitely. And do you, sorry, I know, I think it's an obvious question, but you cut them with just like a
Yeah,
exact,
I'll
right?
show you what I
Oh,
did.
perfect. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
No,
Sorry.
it's okay.
Yes.
When I was at NASCAD, um, the public often will make donations to the school thinking that they have a very special, valuable thing that the school would be desperate to have. And while I was a technician there, someone from the public donated every issue of Lapidary Journal magazine from 1973 through 1985 or something similar to that. But we don't have a lapidary studio at NASCAD anymore. These magazines were black and white, practically photocopied, that really had very little value to our students and to the department. And so we decided that they were going to be recycled. And before they were, I tore out all of the faceting patterns out of them because they had step-by-step instructions on how to facet gemstones in these magazines. And so what I did was I digitally recreated these gemstones in Rhino and made like a three-dimensional model to match the pattern that was provided in the magazine. And then I unwrapped them, flattened them, reorganized them in a way that I'd be able to reassemble them. I'd print them out on paper, color them in, and then score and fold and finish them that way.
That's
So,
fascinating.
and
Sorry.
it really goes back to a lot of the scoring and folding that I was doing of crystal unit cells
Sure.
during grad school. But yeah, just kind of revisiting and refining those earlier experiments. This one is called Crusader.
Wow, it's kind of one of those stories about like, just the universe bringing you what you kind of needed and just right down your alley, but you didn't have a lapidary
Yeah.
school anymore. So these were just lying around, but you also did a thesis on these. So it's just, yeah, it was very
Yeah.
fascinating when you were
And
saying.
it really all comes back to gemology in some way, because that really is
Yeah.
what I've been focusing on. I mean, I teach it at a third year university level. I have a few
Yes.
diplomas in gemology. Like it really is a big part of my life.
Yeah.
Although I'm not actually, it's not that I'm not interested in gemstones. Everyone loves a gemstone. And I think I love gemstones more than the average person, just not in the way that everyone else loves them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it because it's the same thing. Not to make this about myself, but it's always so interesting. I have a very big, huge passion for gemstones, but I very rarely use them in my work.
Exactly.
So it doesn't, it's always an argue. I find it's a common, not argument, but a subject of debate in the jewelry community where for most of jewelry artists, gemstones doesn't really center their work,
Mm-hmm.
but the passion and the excitement for a beautiful gemstone is still there. Like
Yeah.
I see a paraiba and I like
Yeah.
lose all sanity. Like but would I use a paraiba in my work? Sure. If a client wants to give me a paraiba, I would
Right.
love to, but I won't go out to Tucson to buy gemstones to use it in my work. And there's
Right.
nothing wrong with that. It's just not me. So I've never, and I'm really glad that I'm allowed, it's like now that we're able to do these in Zoom because now I can see your work. Some of these I haven't seen. So
Right.
just seeing your progress from that element of gemology and being interested in the crystallizations and all that to here, it's fascinating.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Tucson because within the jewelry community, people are constantly asking me, "Oh, you must love Tucson. You must want to go to Tucson." But like, I'm really not interested
Mhm.
in cut stones. I think in the
Mhm.
same way that other jewelers may be.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah.
No, I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah. Um, so that was just a little foray into paper jewelry. It didn't last very long. It was very recent. I think early last year, that was something that I was working on. But I've really come back to the idea of that environmental generational amnesia. I think that's something that interests me a lot, like this erosion of our appreciation of nature's beauty that is kind of highlighted in this series. I'm casting things from nature, rocks, sticks,
Right.
twigs, and then I'm
Wow.
adorning them with glass beads in the pattern that the moss and lichen were on these
Yeah.
things when I
Yeah.
found them.
Wow. Cool.
So replacing those natural elements with completely synthetic things.
Great.
Yeah,
Love it.
thanks. And so there's a couple of more. So this like idea of using synthetic materials to replicate nature and embellishing them, kind of to ask questions about our relationship with the natural world. Like, why do we need to make the natural world artificial? And what drives our belief that we can do better than nature?
Yes. Yes.
Um, So really, it's just about challenging our perceptions of what is natural versus what is artificial. Um, yeah, thinking about intrinsic beauty and encouraging just the viewer to reflect on our environmental impact
Absolutely.
and our appreciation for the natural world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
These are great to look at.
thanks.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm sitting on these projects for a little bit. I'm still working on them. They're getting bigger. I haven't cut it open yet, but there's a rock inside this mold that will be a piece for New York City Jewelry Week in the fall. So things are getting much, much bigger, and we'll see how that goes. And who knows what projects are coming in the future, but this kind of sticks and stones idea is where I'm going to be sitting for a little while.
Amazing.
So that kind of wraps up my art practice, but I did want to take a couple of minutes to talk about other projects that I'm involved with.
Yes, we would love to.
Yeah. So the first one is Co-Adorn,
Yes.
my baby. Um, so Co-Adorn, maybe to give like the birthing story of Co-Adorn, because it's the thing that I think most people don't really know about Co-Adorn was that it was started because a group of us here in Halifax recognized that many recent graduates were leaving Nova Scotia due to a lack of opportunity. And so, in response, we started Co-Adorn or founded Co-Adorn in 2017. And the goal was to create a small guild like organization where local art jewelers could stay connected after NASCAD. We do have a local metal arts guild, but we wanted something for people working in alternative materials. However, as soon as we started accepting members, Co-Adorn grew to be a national organization and a thriving network of Canadian jewelry artists entirely by accident. We really were trying to be a very small local organization, and now there's a few hundred people who are following what Co-Adorn is up to.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, it was really, really great. I think we underestimated how much graduates or people that we had connections with really wanted opportunities in Canada because we don't have the same quantity or quality sometimes of open calls, workshops like they do in America, simply because we're so stretched out, we're so few and far between, there's not many of us. So we just don't have those same opportunities. And I think we kind of slid into the perfect niche at exactly the right time. So as a national organization by accident, our mission is to create opportunities that support and encourage art jewelry practitioners in Canada. We've done a lot of exhibitions in galleries in Halifax, in Vancouver. We've had shows at Gallery Lewis in Quebec City, LA Pie in Ottawa. We've sent work to Romanian Jewelry Week, and we've participated in New York City Jewelry Week a handful of times. I will say, as of this moment, Co-Adorn is currently dormant, meaning we are not actively creating opportunities at the moment. I don't want to say that we're burnt out necessarily, but we're taking a break from initiating all of the projects, but we're definitely open to new opportunities, and we're seeking out other things to share with, I won't say members, but our community. But at this moment, there are no exhibitions in the work, no open calls. We're kind of waiting for the right opportunities to come our way. So
Can I just add something before you
yeah,
move on about this? Because I
of
feel like
course.
you're being you're being too humble. Because honestly, one of the reasons, I'm just gonna be very honest about this. One of the reasons why Metal 8 has not very much indulged in doing activities like Co-Adorn, even though we have more sort of heads on the table to help? Because you guys, I think you're two, or right?
Yes, we are two now.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have usually 4 to 5 members, but
Mhm.
it is so hard beyond anything honestly you can imagine, especially when you guys pulled that exhibition off at New Jewelry Week last year. I was quite like, it was very refreshing more than any other word to see that somebody's actually willing to take on all of that work, because like getting people to apply and getting there is one part of it, but then getting the work and then taking the work with you, installation, takedown, going through borders, being responsible for people's work, like all of this is a lot of work that in all honesty we were like, we can't take this being having to do this for free, right? Like you're not getting paid, you're not making any money out of this. So that goes back to again my praise for you and my admiration and appreciation for you in terms of a person that's given so much to the community, putting so much of your own time and your own energy and effort into it. So really, I think a lot of us are grateful for that, and you're usually humble about it, but I know the amount of work and energy that goes into it. So please do take all the time that you need to rest and, recuperate, because it takes so much out of you. And I've never ever seen you once sort of complain, like complain about it and be like, like I shouldn't have done that. You're always come out loud and proud, and you put us on the map, and we're all very grateful for that. So sorry, that was my 2 cents. If I didn't say that, I would have not been able to sleep tonight.
I'm a huge complainer, first of all.
Well, I mean, I think we all have a right to complain, but you've never sort of regretfully said, "Oh, I wish I didn't do that, but it was too much work." Like you always are very appreciative of it, and you're very positive. That's the right word that I'm looking for. You've always stayed very positive, and it's so hard in this community and economy and all of that to do
Yeah.
all of this work and still be like that.
I think that especially in the beginning of Co-Adorn, maybe less so recently, I benefited directly from everything that we did, which made it very easy for me to give my time uh, and develop the strange expertise that we now have to be able to do these kinds of exhibitions.
Right,
Definitely in the beginning, we were five, so we had lots of help.
right,
Um, we had to restructure because of lots of different reasons, but when we restructured, we became a team of two because we no longer had a board. But whatever, all of that
right.
aside, I mean, I directly benefit from everything that Co-Adorn does, so I'm happy to do it, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's really great that you're also mentioning that and acknowledging that, but I think a lot of people would not be willing to do that amount of work for that. But it's great because I that's pretty much the same reason why I think most of us at Metal Age are doing this. It does have a personal
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
sort of
yeah. I mean,
satisfaction.
my
Yeah.
my CV has lots of Co-Adorn shows on it.
Yeah.
Luckily, I will say, to be very transparent, I'm juried the same way as everyone else, so I don't want
Yeah.
anyone to think that I've been accepted into these shows because I am
Because you
part
are
of.
doing it. Yeah. No.
Yeah, that is the biggest reason why we always have independent juries for all of the
Curious.
exhibitions
Yeah.
to jury um, every single person who applies to the open call, myself included. Just to put that out there, I'm not in these shows uh, just because I travel them. I'm,
Yeah.
whatever, just to be clear about that. But yeah, I mean, it's been really great. I've learned a lot. I personally think that I'm an expert at getting things across borders now,
Yeah. Well, yeah,
especially the
that's one of
American
the things.
border. Which has been really great. I mean, we definitely have it down to a science. I think that the steps that we need to go through to be able to put an exhibition together.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we don't want everything to become redundant. We don't want to just, oh, every year we go to Jewelry Week.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think that's really great.
So we're just trying to, come up with some ideas of how we could have an exhibition that's maybe curated instead of an open call so that we have more control, or, like a new venue somewhere else in the world. But we're looking for it. And definitely open to any suggestions that anyone wants to send our way. Yeah.
There's lots of comments here, but I will get to them after.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. And then the last thing that I wanted to draw your attention to that Pasha already mentioned is
I
that,
spoiled it all at the beginning. I'm so
yeah,
sorry.
no, it's okay. It's okay. My day job is that I'm the director of operations for New York City Jewellery Week, which is an art festival that takes place in New York City every November. And since NYCJW 22, I've been responsible for managing all of the behind the scenes logistics. So that's like event planning, scheduling, venue management, coordinating all of the open calls, overseeing the virtual program, doing all of our in-person RSVPs, and taking care of the online schedule. Plus, plus, plus. I mentioned my role there only because I know it can be really intimidating to just show up at New York City Jewellery Week, or even apply for any of the opportunities at New York City Jewellery Week. And I wanted to invite you to reach out if you have any specific questions about attending. Because logistics are my role at Jewellery Week, I'm always looking for ways to improve how we communicate the details of NYCJW. And I realize that sometimes we overlook gaps in our messaging by assuming that the audience knows more than they actually do. So I'm very, very happy to answer questions so that we can improve how we communicate and really share how accessible going to New York in November really can be, especially for people who are, on the eastern part of Canada.
Yeah.
And there are lots of ways to participate without attending in person. I started my relationship with New York City Jewellery Week because I was in their emerging artist program, which is called One for the Future. That kind of brought me into the fold. And I think the funny story about my relationship with Jewellery Week is because I was in that emerging artist, or I won that emerging artist award, I felt I had the audacity to email the co-founders to ask them about bringing a Co-Adorn show to New York City Jewellery Week, and foolishly ended my email with, if you ever needed help with anything, I'd be happy to lend a hand. And now this is my job.
Absolutely. Well, that's one of
Yeah.
the things that I was hoping that you would bring up, that because you are a Canadian representative now, as an insider in New York
Yeah.
Jewelry Week. So, and you're very approachable. So if anybody who's on here or knows of people who are interested in having more information or encouragement or whatever it is, just direct them to Chantal. I think she always does a very fine job in making sure you understand and are clear on everything. And honestly, New York Jewelry Week, I also used to help them a little bit at the first year that they started on. It's a great event. It's very, as Chantal already said, there's a huge spectrum of things to do and workshops to go, and whether it's gemstones you're interested in, it's the retail aspect of things, it's whatever it is that you're interested in, there will be something at New York Jewelry. So take advantage of,
Yeah.
Chantal and get involved.
Yeah. And in general, very general terms, most things are free and open to the public.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Um,
part of it.
and don't let me forget about you individually as people, because when opportunities come up, I think about you and I will bring your work forward to Jewelry Week or to curators or whoever we might be in contact with. So we have programs like Discover, which run on the website twice a year. Pasha was our last
Yes, that was
curator for
great.
Discover. That, if we have gaps to fill, I do my best to make sure I find a Canadian to fill them.
Yeah, put yourself on Chantal's radar.
Yeah.
Very, very
Yeah.
helpful.
I mean, I appreciate that nepotism is not a good thing, and I don't necessarily promote it, but I'm there. Let me help if I can, because I
Yeah.
would because I would like to.
Absolutely. And why not, right? If you can, if somebody has, and that's the thing that you also do really, you're good at, you just mentioned is that you think of people. I've been in scenarios where we have had conversations where you were like, oh, so and so would be great to do this. So it's not that you're gonna do any favoritism or like get people into things for like not like applying through things, but it's just definitely you can direct people to the to
Yeah,
right events and the right market or whatever it is they're.
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important, especially for us in Canada. We don't have the same opportunities that Americans have. And even though they have a lot of opportunities, you always see the exact same artists over and over and over again. And I think if we can disrupt that, that's a good thing.
I have only had good experiences at New York Jewelry Week, honestly,
Great.
not a single, because it's also such a fun city, and the fact that all the events are scattered through all the way from Queens to Brooklyn. There's like events, and usually it works out that you do a certain area every day, like the openings and stuff end up being, so it's just such a fun, free, you float around, you run into everybody, and for those that are interested in networking opportunities, honestly, it's the best place to network because everybody's there, especially from the States community. And I have noticed the biggest amount of Canadian participants in any event has been New York Jewelry Week.
Yeah.
So even for us to like, we all saw each other last year at New York Jewelry Week, where I was like, why don't we have events like this in Canada? We all have to come. But then I was like, hey, it's even better if you go to New York because there's other networking opportunities. You have your community around you as the Canadians, and you can also have fun and go to the events and all that.
Yeah.
So
I think one of the biggest selling features, I think for me and my strange jewelry meandering background, where I really hover in a strange world between high, fine, and art jewelry and like contemporary jewelry, that New York City Jewelry Week's mandate is that we are inclusive of all of the jewelry. So
that's it.
whether it's, I don't want to name drop, but whether it's, like we have events at Bergdorf Goodman with their jewelry designers, usually as a VIP event every year. We have a lot of the East Coast art schools will participate. We have educational institutions, but then we have designer collections made out of gold. We have diamonds, we have gemstones, we have engagement rings, and everything in between. Like it really is. There's performance art.
Yeah.
There's sculpture this year for an artist that I'm obsessed with,
Oh,
has
that's
an
amazing.
exhibition this year, but you'll have to wait until mid-October to find out
You
more.
find out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like, Brooklyn Metalworks. There's
Yes.
one thing that I truly found fascinating last year was the amount of embassies or consulates that were hosting shows
Yeah.
for particular, like it was the Greek consulate, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
We did an event through Metal. That was the only international event that we did doing was a virtual show at the Canadian consulate for one of the New York Jewelry Weeks, which was a big success.
Yeah.
But that aspect of it, just to kind of walk into, you're walking into a serious consulate, but then you see the art side, especially jewelry side of it, was just fascinating. And some of the shows are really, I mean, all of the shows are great for me, but some of them were just really over the top, like just
Yeah.
breathtaking.
Well, it is, I will say too, that it is a curated program. So a lot of the jewelry weeks, not all of the jewelry weeks, a lot of time, if you pay a fee, you're welcome to participate. We curate the entire program. So there is an open call, usually launching around April, closing most often around the end of July-ish,
Okay.
that we ask for proposals from the community, and then they are juried from there. So it's not pay a fee, get on a map. It
Yeah,
really is
yeah,
a
sure.
very considered program, which I think makes it all the better.
Makes it of a certain standard, and
Yeah.
that's good, right?
Yeah.
That's always a good thing. Okay, I'm just gonna, if anybody has any questions or want to even turn on your microphone and ask your questions, you're more than welcome to. This is a very casual place, and
Mhm.
we welcome all sorts of questions and comments. I'm just going to go through, not all sorts of questions and comments. Sorry, I don't know why I said that. Related questions and comments. Um, yes. So Ursula is saying she agrees. I never met you, but you seem to do a lot for the community and professionally. That's great. And
Thank you.
Ursula is Vancouver Ursula, right? Yeah.
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 And then a whole bunch of these are beautiful for your work, fascinating. A workshop across the border steps would work, please. I think there might have been a typo there,
Oh
but
yeah, just like to offer some kind of workshop in
yeah,
getting things across the border.
across the border, yeah.
I mean, I won't lie. There's been work that's been stuck in the border. I've paid a lot in fees.
Yep.
I had to apply for a license with the American Fishery and Wildlife Association last year to be able to get stuff across the border, and it didn't go well, but that's fine.
Oh
Lots
my
of
God.
fails to finally succeed, I think.
But at least now you know all the ways. And because I know that's a huge headache, especially if you have a lot of work for other people. It's just like you have to be very, very precise and
Yeah,
like a lot of paperwork.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I think Lindsay's saying that was my fault. MOP,
Oh,
is
it
it?
was Lindsay's fault. It wasn't, it was not Lindsay's fault.
I love that.
It was Mother of Pearl. It was
Oh,
Lindsay's,
mother of pearl. That's the MOP. I was like, what's the MOP? Right.
yeah. I just to elaborate on that situation a little bit is
Oh,
that they
wow.
needed convincing that Lindsay had not harvested the mother of pearl herself and that it was like a
Wow.
commercial product. In that case, we applied for the license. We were refused the license because we didn't have an American business address because we're not an American organization. Chose to have the parcel returned. It came to me 3 days before I left for Jewelry Week, unpacked it, took out Lindsay's work, put everything back, shipped it again. It arrived the same day I did in New York with Lindsay's earrings in my suitcase. So,
Oh, wow.
there's some nail biting moments with
Well, yeah, sure.
Co-Adorn, but it's fine. Everything's fine. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, exactly right. That's the attitude. Really,
That's
really.
the attitude that you have to
That's right. Um,
have.
any questions? Anyone? Any comments?
Someone says that they want to take my gemstone class.
Oh yes, sorry. I forgot. They want to take your tips. That was the more like
You
one of the most
you
important.
may.
Sorry, yes.
It's on Monday nights in the January to April semester at NASCAD. It is not an online class. You do have
Oh,
to
that's what I was
attend
gonna ask.
in person because we do hands-on
Yeah,
gemology.
no, I agree. I agree. I agree. That's
So you have to have
100%.
access to the equipment. I give top marks for anyone who laughs at my puns. And
Of
yeah, it's a
course.
really good time. But yeah, it's usually 6:30 to 9:30 or 6 to 9 on Monday nights in the January to April semester, and it is open to the public. If
Oh
anyone's
my
interested.
God. Now I'm
And
FOMO.
and any students who take gemology with me at NASCAD are eligible to write the preliminary exam for the Canadian Gemological Association. They get to skip the first year of the CGA program if they study with me. So bonus. Bonus to people who are not students, who are professionals that would like to begin their path in gemology. Let's make that happen. Oh, Jenny, the puns are great. That's funny. Thanks, Jenny.
I honestly, I was just thinking, I was like, you're so passionate about all of this. Now I want to go to gemology.
Yeah.
I'm
I
like, maybe I
mean,
should dip my toes. Because gemology was the one of the funnest classes for me at George Brown. Just like looking under the microscope, looking at the structure,
yeah.
all the chemical stuff behind all of that was just very
Yeah.
fascinating.
I think it's a really nice experience to be doing something related to your art practice that is completely different from making.
Yeah.
Like sometimes some of us miss out on that like academic sciency aspect of being in the post-secondary world. And sometimes it's nice to challenge your brain in a very different way than art history or your studio practice
Yeah. I
allow.
think you got a whole lot of people excited because Patrick M is saying I would love to geek out on some gems.
Yeah.
Really good subject to geek out on. And Ursula also says I've been considering gemology to help with goldsmithing. Well, that's the thing, right? It's like it opens up a whole other world of being able to confidently work on, because one of the reasons why I don't really work, I told you this when we were talking about gemstones. I love gemstones, but it's kind of such a risky market to want to also advertise, and like all the other middlemen involved, and by the time you get a stone to a client, it's like a million times more expensive than what it's supposed to be. So all of that, but having the knowledge and the notion can definitely help you,
Yeah.
especially if you want to expand your business into something a bit more like pricier things, then it's a great asset to have.
I
And it
think
goes hand in hand.
I was going to say, even on a very basic level, I think that it's very helpful for even like, okay, when you take gemology with me, it's like a preliminary year program. It's not, you don't leave being able to identify gemstones, or maybe you can, but you shouldn't
Yeah.
professionally.
Yeah.
But like you have enough knowledge, but I think that it's even very beneficial for people who work in the retail environment, because then you know what is safe to put in the ultrasonic. What can you
Exactly.
steam clean for a client? What can you put up against like a buff? And gemstones,
Very important. Yes.
yeah, people are very emotionally attached to their gems, so you need to know how to be able to care for them properly, sourcing, just, the most basic things that someone who isn't a goldsmith or a jeweler can benefit from knowing. I'm very, very pro gemology. Everyone
Yeah.
should take
No,
a
I'm
basic
really,
gemology
really
class.
inspired me.
Oh.
So you might see me moving to Halifax.
Yeah, come. You can come stay with me for 4 months. No problem. Come on, everybody.
Honestly, just probably stay at Chantal and she'll take care of you. I love that.
Yeah.
Really, you're such a, we were just I'm just gonna be honest, just before we log on, I was telling Chantal that I've done this a million times, but it's still like, it's kind of nerve-wracking to get in front of people. Not in people, but like, especially when it's a recorded session on Zoom. But Chantal is such a natural, and you're just like, I'm sorry if I was annoying with my comments in the middle, because I often try to help people navigate conversations, but you were such a natural that I felt annoying after a while, and I was like, I'm just gonna
Oh,
shut up and let her do her thing. You're great.
no, thanks.
Honestly, this,
I mean, I do have a lot of experience delivering PowerPoints. I
well, it
I
shows.
have been teaching at NASCAD since 2007. So it's been a really long time of that like public, PowerPoint
Probably, sure.
presentation
No,
delivery.
but just like your passion about all of this really shines through,
Thank
and
you.
you're really indulging. Very, very, for
Thanks.
me, I hope everybody else also really enjoyed it, but for me, it was a fascinating presentation. Very
Thank
happy you
you.
did it. Thank you. I can't thank you enough.
No, thank you. And
Yeah.
I didn't show my final slide. I forgot to, but it
Please.
has my contact information on it. I'm very open.
Do you
Uh,
want to put it up quickly? Because we're not out of time.
am I gonna? It doesn't matter. You can DM me on Instagram, and I'm
Don't say
happy to reply.
that. You
But
can't.
I
No,
do.
we're
I
not
do really
gonna
mean it.
get.
Listen, you would be
You
surprised at
wanna
the
get
DMs I
off?
get, and I'm really happy to reply to them. I really am.
Okay, I know you are, because that's what I also said at the beginning of this presentation. I said I've never waited longer than 5 minutes to hear back from Chantal. I mean, it's not a set rule, but it's just so amazing at getting back quickly. And there you go. Patrick also says she always replies. And Lindsay says I enjoyed it very much. Thank you. And
Thank
Ursula saying see you
you.
at New York Jewelry Week. Yes, I hope to see everybody at New York Jewelry Week. I'm planning to go if time allows.
I'll
Time
be
is
there.
financials. And she will definitely, Chantal will be there, but
Yeah.
we should all represent
Yeah.
once again.
Everyone should come.
Yeah. Really, really, honestly, I can't say this enough. It was a delightful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I am. Oh, sorry. I read somebody as I read somebody's comment as Lindsay, but it's Anu. So I don't know if you know that person, or anyway. thank you everybody for joining. I'm lining up our next guest, so I don't really know who it's going to be. But as soon as they get back to me, I will announce it on our next newsletter. Keep your eyes peeled. Let everybody know about this fascinating presentation. We'll hopefully have it up. We're running a little slow, but we'll have it up at YouTube within the next 3 weeks to a month. So hopefully, because we're backlogging. I know, I'm sorry. I did. Who knew
I'm
editing
in
was
no
gonna be
rush
so-
to live
I
on
thought you were
YouTube.
shaking your head at me, like, how dare you?
No.
But honestly, I will we'll get on it as soon as possible. And then yeah, just join us on the next round of this interview. Thank you, Chantel.
Thank you for having me.
You made my day, really. Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a beautiful evening, everyone. And thanks for
Bye,
listening.
everybody.
Bye bye. And I will